good to be here. Good to see everybody. Glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm a member of this church, this unity. And glad, Reverend Donna, you're back. Came back home safely. Thank you all for that great song. And it started out about dreaming. And so there's some themes here. You know, we really didn't talk about what we were going to do, but somehow something happens. So ever since I was a wee one, at least a couple years ago, maybe 2 or 3, I have been a dreamer. Dreams have taught me. I created music and poetry and artwork, and even did all my schoolwork in my dreams at night, all the way through college. And I would footnote them, too. All I needed to do was dream, set an intention, and something came forth. Also, difficult emotions and situations would come to light, and I was provided guidance and insights. Many of the scriptures I would read about or sing about, like, the wise man builds his house upon the rock. I still sing that every now and then. Anybody here know that song? Okay, well, clearly it's something that really resonated with me. But as a child would come to light and provide a living, purposeful understanding for me in my dreams. I would meet my teachers, seen and unseen, who would teach me, and sometimes I would meet them during waking times. As I grew older, I learned that everything that was showing up in my dreams was an aspect of myself, as it is in life. There was no difference. It's true I would also dream about earth changes, and yes, I also would dream about the stock market, which served me very well one time. Before we had the cash, I took all my money out. People said, "Oh, Debbie, you just really have lost it." Worked out well for me. But that really wasn't the focus of my dreams. Spirit extended invitations to me, providing the opportunity for me to say yes, and to come closer and grow in this deepening relationship. I learned my point of awareness and my intention were primary, both for my dream time and my lifetime, and I didn't see them any different. I still don't see them any different. I share this because today I'll be talking a bit about what is seen as the outer and inner pilgrimage. Pilgrimage as an allegorical and metaphysical journey of a soul span, always arriving here. Yes, always here. One of the invitations which came to me about 6 months before my 60th birthday, a few years back, I started dreaming. I was walking the Camino de Santiago. Anybody walk the Camino de Santiago? Then I started dreaming about St. James. Now, I should mention here that I'm not aware of having Catholic roots in this lifetime, but all roots, I thought, well, okay, there's something here. And there were reasons why this was kind of unusual for me, but I'm not really going to talk about that because that's not the brunt of the story. After a discernment process, which for me is prayer and meditation, it is foundational for me, I said yes. And subsequently, it was apparent I was to start in Lourdes or Lourdes, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Now, France. Now that's really unusual because that's not typically where you would start it. You would do either the France or the Spain. But this is what my guidance said. So, and after again I had done an extensive discernment process, I trusted my guidance. I'm going to highlight 5 pivotal moments during this pilgrimage, which I think you'll see a common theme. What can I say, So I was raised in France and Germany. I didn't come to the United States until the first part of my high school, maybe preteens, end of junior high. I felt confident in my ability to navigate Europe, pretty much, but especially France. However, I got lost in the train station. I mean, it doesn't take much for me to get lost. Anybody who knows me knows that. Luckily, we have GPS. It wasn't helpful in the train station. So I'm wandering around, and clearly I probably looked like some lost tourist or somebody, carrying a backpack, though. That's all I had was my backpack. A gentleman came up to me and said, "Can I help you?" And he was speaking French, so I at least knew, and he looked like a friendly man. And I said, in my best remembered French, "I'm looking for the train to Lourdes." "Oh," he says, "well, I can help you. I go there every year during my vacation. I spend my time in service there." He proceeded to tell me that he was one of the, quote, sick, and this is to use his term, who was carried in on a stretcher, and he was healed. And now, and why he does his volunteer work, he knows that his healing is service. And that's this is my first introduction to this pilgrimage. I thought, oh, well, okay. Particularly, this reminded me, and I smiled because it reminded me of Unity's fifth principle. Knowing and understanding the laws of life is not enough. We must live the truth. We must know through our actions. Clearly, I had a living example here. Also, my favorite Bible verse, which I need to share with you. I would be remiss if I didn't. "Whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you." Philippians 4:9. So I stayed in Lourdes for a couple days, and yes, I went to the baths. That was not my intention, and I don't have really any remembrance of bath. All I remember is singing my version of Ave Maria, and if you stand next to me or sit next to me, and I'm sure a few of you have, I love to sing, but heaven help, we don't know what the words are. They just come flying through, and I'm going to sing whatever comes to me. But I was very passionate in the baths, and I loved the singing of the Ave Maria. It kept going on and on and on. So I love that part. I don't know really what happened in the baths, but Ave Maria was great. And it was also nice being able to sing it with people from everywhere. I didn't know them, but we all were coming together for this purpose. So the day before I was scheduled to leave to start my little walk, I realized I have lost all my glasses. If you have any glasses, I'm collecting. So I'll say I was a bit panicked. Now I can't see far or near without my glasses, so I would give new meaning to the word tree hugging. So I ask around, and I'm told that there's a little optical shop in the small town. And of course I hurry down there, and I meet the clerk, and luckily he spoke English, and I'm telling him my long story and my glasses, and he says, "We'll come back tomorrow morning, but we don't do glasses like, overnight." So first thing next morning, I'm at the door for the optical shop, and the manager comes out and says, "Oh, it's you, I remember you from the baths, Ave Maria. You were just so passionate." I thought, well, and so he and we connected, and, it was like I was being greeted. He was waiting for me. Good thing, because I need glasses. He says to me, "Well, I can make you one pair of glasses. I get to choose the color, but I have one thing I want to ask you. I won't charge you for your glasses. I want you to stand outside my store and sing your version of Ave Maria for the afternoon." Now, I am an introvert. I know there's other introverts here, but if Ave Maria takes over, then I can probably get beyond my shyness or my introvertedness. So that's what I did for that afternoon. But the good news is, at the end of the afternoon, there were 24 people about. I didn't count them exactly, but it felt like a couple dozen, who were out there singing with me. I got a little help with Ave Maria. I could carry the tune, but, it was... So anyway, he did, at the end of the day, give me a pair of glasses. Bright, psychedelic purple glasses. Now, I don't know if they glowed in the dark, because I wasn't walking around in the dark, but I was so grateful that I had a pair of glasses. So, There's more to come about glasses. So I travel on. I've got my glasses. I can see again. Good thing. So now we're over the Pyrenees in Spain. After coming over the Pyrenees, I was somewhat exhausted, hungry, raw, and I'm going to say I was a bit whiny. I was whiny. But I see a makeshift shack that to me looks like an outhouse. Now, I didn't have to go to the bathroom, but I thought, well, I should check this out. This is interesting. Open the door, and it's a small church. It was so makeshift that it looked like if you kicked it, it would fall down. But I thought this was perfect. I could go in there and sit down and pray. Well, that's how I started out. But again, I was a little whiny. I found myself ranting and raving, and I had the whole gamut of emotions. I spent 20 minutes in there. But before I went in, I looked around. There was nobody there. Nothing. I come out, and there's a horse. A horse. Where did this horse come from? A very nice looking horse, a work horse. Now, we could talk about a little bit about what this all meant and a lot of things, but I thought, well, okay, there's a horse here. He must belong to somebody. Well, a horse started traveling with me. I now have a horse who's traveling with me. Well, now, horse was friendly with me, but if he would run into you, he would nip at you. Now, that didn't do much for my social life. Of course, I wasn't on the Camino for the social aspect of it. In all honesty, I tried to ditch horse a couple times. I would run into the cafe, I'd go to the bathroom, hide out, wake up at night, horse is there. I wasn't feeding horse. I don't know where horse came from or who was feeding him. Where it was really problematic is when the pilgrims would get together sometimes out if you were in a town, and we'd sit at a cafe. Well, there's me and the pilgrims, and then there's horse behind me. I mean, literally a horse. When I first saw a horse, I thought, okay, Debbie, maybe this is your imagination. Has anyone else seen horse? Well, they saw horse. So horse traveled with me until, I will say, how long did horse travel with me? He traveled with me about a third of the way. But what I learned was, what did I do here? Just a minute here. I did learn something. I'm sure I did. Oh well. So what I learned is that once I made peace with horse, probably literally and figuratively, horse wandered off. Yeah. Horse wandered off. So I travel on. I'm about 100 miles outside of the Celtic area in Galicia, which is the Irish portion, my favorite. But you know how it is when you got to go to the bathroom really bad? There's nobody around, there's nothing to do, nobody on the trail. So I stop. I see cows above a nice tree. I think, oh, I can lean against that tree. And then down below, there's kind of a muddy, murky, I won't say what else is in that ravine. I got to know it intimately below. So I'm in a hurry. I take down my pants. I think I'm going to lean against the tree. I've forgotten to take off my pack. Well, I'm rolling down the hill. I wasn't hurt. This isn't a story about trauma. It was like, did I do it with finesse? I don't know. But the next thing I know, the cows have gathered around me. They're mooing. And I hear from beyond me and behind, Debbie, love, is that you? Is that you? What are you doing down there? Australian accent. So my friend Jeremy, who I met, he and his family, before I crossed over the Pyrenees, he and his family helped me get out of this ravine. And they broke up the cows. I had become part of the cow pod. Now, my last name's Moody, I'll just mention, so I thought to myself, okay. And I do have a thing about cows. Every time I drive by one, I think, I wonder what that cow's thinking. Where does that come from? I have no idea. But I became part of the cow pod. Now, you know what happened, don't you? I'm in the ravine, rolling around. I lose my glasses. Again, I'm losing my glasses. So we spent another hour another hour, at least an hour, looking for my glasses, getting me cleaned up, you know. I had to pull my pants up, of course, but, you know, it was really very mucky, and there were all sorts of things down there. We did find my glasses, my bright purple glasses, and actually that was a blessing. They were purple. Purple. So we got them cleaned up, and I travel on. So I arrive in Camino de Compostela, where they have the Pilgrim's Mass. I like to call it a ceremony. You didn't have to do it. But the reason why it was so important to me was this was my birthday, and I'm arriving. So, you know, you greet the other pilgrims. Some people you've met, they've passed, you know. I saw my Australian people. I'm putting down my pack. And from yonder comes a priest. A priest. A priest. He says, "Hi, Debbie, is that you?" And I'm thinking to myself, you know, it's not like we're at Cheers and everybody knows my name, you know. I mean, it was really, and I'm thinking, okay, now how does this priest know me? And now I have a priest. I've got a priest. I mean, people stopped because I was personally being greeted by a priest. So he says to me, he says, "How was your pilgrimage? How was your walk?" I said, "Oh, it was very great. I particularly liked the Celtic area, and the reason why I liked the Celtic area, which I explained, was because at this point I didn't probably need my glasses. It was the most beautiful, beautiful area. It reminded me a lot of Ireland, and I know there's a couple people here from Ireland, my Irish roots, but the trees were singing, the wind's kissing my cheek, and really for me, it expanded. There was only kind of a point of awareness, and I could hear the rhythm of my boots. So I really didn't need my glasses at that point, but it sure took a long time to kind of work that through for myself. I go on and on, explain to him some things that happened, and he finally says to me, and he's gazing deeply in my eyes. And again, I don't know this priest from anyone. And I said to him, "Well, you know, have I met you someplace? Maybe I met you someplace where I stayed." No, and he just says, no, he's just gazing. And I said, "Well, but interesting, he didn't have quite a Spanish accent, and I couldn't figure it out. And he was speaking to me in English. He says to me, "Well, how's your vision?" Oh, I said, "It is just wonderful. I think it's better than before I left, I have new glasses." Yes, he says, "I see you have purple glasses. It's easy to find you." I thought, yeah, that's probably true. Finally, after talking with him for a while, he says to me, "Well, you really don't know me," because I thought, well, maybe I met him in France. So his brother was the manager of the optical store. And what I would say about this is that clearly I was being held in many, many more ways than I could ever have imagined. And I don't believe, or my experience is that an outer pilgrimage, there has already been an inner process that is going on, and in terms of preparation. So I'm going to switch gears for a moment and talk a little bit about the inner pilgrimage. For me, the pilgrimage to the Camino de Santiago, I wasn't going to mention this, but I will because it may be relevant. There was something a while back, I'll just say, but this isn't really the focus, but So I had a major spinal cord injury, or I'm going to say the body had a major spinal cord injury at one point and wasn't walking. Now, what I want to say is I am totally healed, and it was a process, but I was very supported. So when I started dreaming about going on the Camino, you can only imagine what the people in my life thought. But I was walking at this point, but most people just don't jump up and say, "Well, now I'm going on the Camino." But to be honest with you, that is somewhat what happened. I mean, there was time span in between there, but I bring this up because there's always healing, and I consider myself healed. I am healed. We are healed. So the inner pilgrimage, there's the pilgrimage of a lifetime. Of a year. Of a season. Of a moment. I'm going to speak just for a moment about a season. Perhaps during a season, the calendar clears, the company fades, when our own breath becomes the most familiar sound, much like when you're walking geographically. And in that season, the world invites us to a different kind of listening, the kind that reaches beneath the surface. When memories come unbidden, when old dreams stir, when grace and grief sit side by side on the table, in the table. This is an invitation, an opportunity to walk that road inward, closer than our breath. And maybe in our own quiet moments, when we step away from the noise, or perhaps fall into the noise, into the silence, when we listen without rushing to respond or simply stop, we meet that sacred fire. We become keepers of something ancient, oh so ancient and so present. We begin to recognize the quiet friendship, the one with our breath, the rhythm of our own footsteps, and our beloved. These friendships ask only that we stay long enough to feel our own pulse, to tend to that small hearth inside, to tend to this sacred fire. And when we do, something begins to happen, to soften. We become gentler with our own longings. We start to recognize the quiet dignity in the silence, sometimes perhaps even the solitude, the kind that simply waves like a light in the window, welcoming us home. First step, last step, only this step. We sit on the throne of this living temple, the wellspring of living waters. We are this holy ground. Before I close, which don't worry, we're not going to do this all afternoon and sing Ave Maria, there's a couple things I want to mention. That unity.org has some wonderful foundational support during these times, whether it's an inner or outer pilgrimage, prayer and meditation. A couple of my favorite are Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters, and also Charles and Cora Fillmore's Teach Us to Pray. But we also have wonderful, dedicated prayer chaplains here. This isn't an advertisement. I've actually sat in the prayer circle on Tuesday, and whether you're praying or not, the silence is palpable. It's palpable. So I just wanted to kind of mention that. So in closing, I'd like to share a poem from Rumi, and this is closing. I know it by heart, but it's probably better I stay on task, so I don't venture off someplace. O pilgrim, where have you been? Where are you now? While you have been searching the world, the beloved has been here all along, waiting for you. Let the caravan carry you home to your deepest heart's desire. The treasure you sought was buried in your own garden. Come home, O wanderer, and behold the face in the mirror. Yes, behold the face in the mirror. Look behind the eyes and see the one who has been searching for you. You are seen. You are known. You are beloved. Thank you.